It is UFC 319 fight week. Dricus Du Plessis versus Khamzat Chimaev is finally here. I am beyond excited for this card. But with a Khamzat Chimaev fight week, my head's already going to explode. We get fans regurgitating the stupidest narratives regarding Khamzat Chimaev. And last week, we got Dean Thomas, UFC analyst and broadcaster, like, yeah, man, Khamzat Chimaev wins at UFC 319. Man, it's going to be a disaster for the UFC, bro. And a couple days later, I already covered that. A couple days later, he went on Sanko's podcast and spewed some of the dumbest shit I have ever heard in my entire life regarding Khamzat Chimaev. We're going to check out a couple different clips in this video. But he even had the audacity to say, man, people are saying I hate Muslims when I'm just giving my opinion on Khamzat, man. It's not about his character or anything. We're going to discuss that, okay? Because that's a topic not a lot of people discuss, and I'm just going to break down my opinion on that. But man, I am tired of hearing some of this dumb garbage regurgitated by people trying to sound smart. And I know the majority of the MMA community doesn't give a rat's ass what Dean Thomas has to say. But for me personally, he's a conduit to the MMA community, okay? Because there are people in the MMA community regurgitating some of these dumb ass narratives. Not all of them. Not all of them, but a lot of them. Like Dean Thomas essentially calling the Khamzat Chimaev Robert Whittaker win a fluke. He doesn't outright say that, but he essentially calls it a fluke. And the laundry list of Khamzat Chimaev's inactive, this and that, says a lot of nonsense. We're going to break it all down this video. Do me a favor before we get into that. If you guys enjoy these types of videos, like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. Let's just jump right into it, okay? Because we got a lot to check out. So we're going to start off with this. He's like, yeah, man, Khamzat Chimaev, the win over Whittaker, man, was just a one-off. Essentially, he's calling it a fluke. That's what he's saying without saying fluke outright. Listen to this.
It's so hard to put a finger on all this because we're talking about sample sizes. We're not monitoring a guy in the room every day and going, okay, this is exactly what he is. I mean, we're talking about a guy who, when he first came out the gate, we unleashed him on Reese McKee and a guy named John Phillips or something, right?
I swear some of these bums just try to sound smart. I've told you guys this before. I'm not sitting here claiming, oh, I'm the smartest MMA analyst there ever was, blah, blah, blah. A lot of these people on MMA YouTube, a lot of these so-called analysts, even on the UFC broadcast, I swear they're just trying to sound smart. They're saying a whole lot of nothing. And they don't even know what the fuck they're talking about because they're just regurgitating dumb shit. Dean Thomas is here saying, yeah, man, he came out the gate, man. He fought Reese McKee. Like, what a bum Reese McKee is. You don't know the sport. Dead giveaway exposed right there. Because Khamzat Chimaev is 14-0, okay? 14-0 in 2025, okay? You could say, oh, he's inactive, Joey. Let's go back to when he fought Reese McKee. Okay, by the way, Reese McKee's a decent fighter, not a straight-up scrub. I'm not saying it's the most quality win of all time. At the time he fought Reese McKee, he was 7-0. Khamzat was 7-0, fighting 10-2 Reese McKee. Dead giveaway right there. Dead giveaway. By the way, where's Reese McKee at? Let's check out where he's at nowadays. Let's see where he's at nowadays. He's coming off a loss to Chidi Njokuani and a loss to Angelosa. So it is what it is. But oh, he got a win over Daniel Frunza in his last fight via doctor stoppage. By the way, I remember thinking, if I'm not mistaken, that he beat Chidi Njokuani, but that's besides the point. Dude does not know what he's talking about. Khamzat was 7-0, but discrediting the win of a 7-0 debuting Khamzat Chimaev against Reese McKee, who's a decent fighter, okay? Let's be real. But that's not the whole point of the video. Let's carry on.
So, I can't even remember their names barely. So when you deal with a high output, high octane athlete like him against a B-level fighter, he's going to mash them up. He's going to make them look like they didn't even belong inside the octagon. I mean, that's the type of horsepower he has in his offense. And then when you put him up against a guy who has a little bit better defense, like a guy like Gilbert Burns, then we go, okay, he still can fight. Like he's still the dude, right? We still saw something from him. And then the Robert Whittaker fight is such a one-off. You got
Man, so he's trying to discredit him for beating Gilbert Burns. By the way, Gilbert Burns in his prime at that time. And the way Khamzat fought was he was going out there to just brawl and entertain. He could have won a much more conservative fight without it being so entertaining. But either way, so in a fight where Khamzat fights a legit middleweight, now he's moved up to middleweight, he fights a former champion who is still considered to be in his prime or very close to his prime. He goes out there and demolishes him, okay, victimizes him in one round, and now you're like, oh man, that's a one-off.
You gotta say that was a one-off. I mean, he crushed his teeth. He got in a really good position on Robert Whittaker early, which he does with everybody, and he crushed his teeth that were already damaged. So it was kind of a one-off.
I could end the video right here. You're a dumb bitch. Yeah, man, his teeth were already damaged, man. It's a one-off. He's saying it's a fluke win. So if Whittaker's teeth were so mashed for so many years, how come nobody else did that to him? How come he went to the second round with DDP? Okay? How come nobody else mashed those teeth in? Okay? Other than maybe Adesanya, I guess. It's like crazy to me to say, man, if he didn't hurt his teeth in the past and he didn't have an injury there, then maybe Whittaker would have been. Dude, Whittaker wasn't winning that fight. Khamzat went out there, ragdolled him to the ground, and abused him. Okay? Literally abused him and victimized him. Okay? Just because someone gets knocked out in the past, in the future when someone else knocks him out, you don't go, when Nasruddin Imavov knocks out Israel Adesanya, you don't go, well, Alex Pereira knocked him out 3 years prior. You don't say that. Just because Whittaker supposedly had teeth issues for years, we weren't saying it when Adesanya KO'd him, because apparently this was an issue that bothered him for a long time. Either way, it's just discrediting the win. He got to the position. He would have finished him regardless, in my opinion. But again, Dean Thomas has to call it a fluke.
So it's really hard to say what we're dealing with a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, because the sample size still, to me, is so small. We don't have like all this concrete information. So what I try to base it on is what I hear about him from in the gym. Like, I got people on the inside.
Oh, he's got people on the inside. Let me skip ahead a few seconds. We don't need to listen to all this dead air. So let's hear what he has to say, because he starts to slip up here and show his actual Khamzat Chimaev hate. Listen to this.
That everything that I'm talking about how good he is against B-level guys, he's that good to A-level guys. That's the problem. That's the problem, is he's that good to A-level guys. He had
the problem for who? The problem for who? It's like, yeah, man, that's the problem, man. He's that good. I'm hearing from inside sources. He's that good, man. That's the problem. What do you mean problem? Problem maybe for a fucking hater. Maybe a problem for a piss poor analyst who makes up excuses for every performance. I've said this before and I'll say it again. And anybody watching this who potentially does other content on YouTube or whatever, I don't know who's watching this right now. Spread the word. Khamzat Chimaev is a victim of his own success. He was so dominant. He was destroying guys in the first round that then he goes out there with a top 5 Gilbert Burns and beats him via decision, hurts him multiple times, almost finishes him. It's not good enough. He steps in on short notice against a Kamaru Usman who could arguably still be welterweight champion. Okay, you could say, well, Khamzat was already scheduled to fight. He was supposed to fight Paulo Costa. Big difference between fighting Costa and Kamaru Usman. He 10-8s Kamaru Usman in the grappling. Chimaev's performance against Kamaru Usman is one of the most underrated wins of all time. And by the way, everyone acts like, yeah, man, well, Khamzat gassed, man. He gassed in those fights. He won the third round in the Usman fight and the Burns fight. He 10-8'd Usman in the grappling fresh. Fresh. It's not like he did it in the 5th round. Oh, well, Usman came in on short. No, he did it in the first round. Looked for a rear naked choke early. But, this is what you have. This is what you have. It's Khamzat is a victim of his own success. He's been so dominant. He's been brutalizing guys. So when he doesn't go out there and rip their heads off like he did Robert Whittaker, it's just not good enough. And then when he goes out there and does it against a guy like Whittaker, oh, it's a fluke. When he goes out there and does it against Reese McKee in his UFC debut, well, he's fighting bums. So what do you need him to do? I'm curious. What do you need him to do, Dean?
Hasn't really had an opportunity to show it. Even though he has, right? Even though he has, like
I mean, what does that even mean? I'm telling you guys, I've been saying this for a while. A lot of these dudes, whether it be like, on the UFC desk or MMA YouTube, a lot of these people are just trying to sound smart. Man, it's like this weird jargon sports talk. Like, yeah, man, he just hasn't really had the opportunity to prove it. Maybe to you, a fucking idiot. Or have you not been watching? Again, I told you guys, he's a victim of his own success. If he doesn't go out there and absolutely destroy you, somehow it's a horrible win.
Good to A-level guys. That's the problem. That's the problem, is he's that good to A-level guys. He hasn't really had an opportunity to show it. Even though he has, right? Even though he has. And
Sanko's nodding along like this makes sense. This is jargon. This is rhetoric. I don't even know what the fuck. What is he even saying? He's that good in the gym. Like, think about how fucking stupid this is. Yeah, man, I'm hearing from sources. He's that good in the gym. He just hasn't had the opportunity to prove it yet, because when he fought elite level opposition and finished him in the first round and dominated him and didn't absorb a single strike, man, I think it was a fluke, man. But he has shown it. Never mind. He has. Like, what is this? What is this gibberish? Let's continue. And Sanko's nodding along. Get her off the desk. I've defended Sanko for too long. Get her off the desk. She's like, yeah, Dean. Makes a lot of sense, Dean. You're speaking to me.
Absolutely, for 2 rounds, dominated Kamaru Usman. He mashes up Robert Whittaker in what I just called a one-off. But apparently, to the people in Sweden who know him from the gym every day, that's normal.
Yeah.
He's supposed to.
And I kind of was like you.
All right, I don't care, Sanko. But yeah. So the wins that he does have aren't good enough. And, him getting tired in a Kamaru Usman fight where he injured his hand and getting a 10-8 against Usman and then eventually winning the fight anyway isn't good enough. You could arguably make the case that Usman was still the welterweight champion. I know that sounds crazy, and that is a bit of a stretch, but you get my point. It's not like Usman was washed, okay? He's still not washed years later. Let's continue because there's more. There's more. The next clip I want to show you is a little bit off topic considering what we are currently talking about. This will one day be the narrative about Khamzat Chimaev, and that day may be coming very soon, depending on how Saturday night goes. Listen to this. This same narrative he's talking about with Dricus Du Plessis right now and saying how wrong it was will eventually be the future of Khamzat Chimaev. Mark my words. I don't know if it'll happen Saturday because the fight may not last that long, but listen to this.
And finds a way to win.
Yeah, I mean, he might have gotten wrongly accused of having bad cardio early because of his nose issue.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't breathe out of his nose. So clearly
he was gasping. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to be an issue, like if you can't breathe out of your nose.
Yeah.
Wrongly accused of bad cardio. I've told you guys for a while, Khamzat's proven to me he has 5-round cardio already, not even going 5 rounds. That will eventually be the narrative. I wanted to say that on a video. Let's continue because I sat through all this. I mean, this was painful to listen to. I mean, this was nothing but gibberish, nonsensical. You guys are like, Joey, why are you getting so fired up about this? You don't care what Dean Thomas has to say. I'm tired of hearing illogical bullshit spewed by the MMA community. And when you have dudes like, man, Dean's a coach, man. He stepped in the cage, man. Respect him. No, he's a dumbass. He's a dumbass. But let's just jump ahead and listen to more of this dumb, mentally ill, low IQ MMA takes. Let's continue on, okay? Anything to use Dean Thomas as a conduit to the low IQ MMA community. But let's carry on. He's asked about his comments about Khamzat Chimaev being a disaster for the UFC, and him and Sanko spew some of the most garbage takes I've ever heard in my life, and we're going to break it down in this video.
You made some headlines this last week or so with Khamzat Chimaev becoming champ would be a disaster for the UFC. Isn't it fun how when you do one interview and you say one thing, someone will grab it, and then it becomes, that's all Dean Thomas has ever said about Khamzat Chimaev.
Isn't it funny? And I hate to keep going on these little side tangents. I'm sure there's some people getting pissed right now. Isn't it crazy how some people just string together sentences that just mean nothing? I mean, does this mean anything to any of you guys? Let me rewind this back for Sanko. Let me rewind this back.
You made some headlines this last week or so with Khamzat Chimaev becoming champ would be a disaster for the UFC. Isn't it fun how when you do one interview and you say one thing, someone will grab it, and then it becomes, that's all Dean Thomas has ever said about Khamzat Chimaev. That is his only thought on Khamzat Chimaev. He does.
Nobody said that. Nobody did that. Okay? He said a lot of dumb things about Khamzat Chimaev. But what are you even talking? Isn't it funny how when you say things in interviews, people talk about the things you say in interviews and post on? Thanks for wasting my fucking time by saying a bunch of nothingness. Yeah, man, Dean, laugh it off, bro. But yeah, this meant nothing. This meant nothing. It should have been, Dean, last week you said Khamzat Chimaev would be a disaster for the UFC. Do you stand by that? I know you got a lot of backlash. How do you feel about that backlash, Dean? But instead, you got to do all this jargon. That's what I'm going to start saying in all my videos. I'm tired of hearing this jargon, like this like want to sound smart jargon. Look, I sound like an idiot. Can't even string my sentences together properly. Let's continue.
Doesn't like him. He thinks he's like, it's crazy to me. Your whole point was that it's hard for him to be an active champ, which is,
Dude,
you're not wrong. I don't think anyone would disagree.
You are wrong. You are wrong. And I'm going to prove you wrong in a fucking minute.
I thought I was stating the obvious. I thought I was just saying what everybody else was thinking. I had no idea that Bilal Muhammad thinks that Khamzat's gonna go out there and be fighting, every 3 months to defend his belt to keep the division moving. I had no idea.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, he made a whole post. Bilal Muhammad made a whole post like, what the bleep is Dean Thomas talking about?
Oh, he did?
I swear it. I was like, yo, I'm flattered, honestly. I'm flattered by the attention from that. But I thought I was stating the obvious. I'm like, we've got a guy who has been averaging one fight a year for one reason or another. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, but this excuse and that's just like that. The excuses are not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about he hasn't. It's irrelevant to the fact that as a contender, he only fights one time a year. Imagine him as champion that's got media obligations and his life blows up. This guy's going, when is he? I mean, was it good for the division when John Jones became heavyweight champ? And it wasn't even as solid. The only person who was affected by that was Tom Aspinall. Now we're talking about the middleweight division where you got Reiner de Ritter, you got Kyle Bahayo, we got Imavov, we got all these guys that want to fight for the title. If you give it to Khamzat Chimaev and then he goes, hey guys, I'm sick, or hey guys, I can't fight now, or hey guys, I can't fight in the States, or hey guys, I got it. Dude, the whole division is going to suffer.
Yeah, you're not. It's really not that hot of a take because it is, in fact, what we have witnessed over the last couple of years. You're just kind of, like you said, stating, I think it's the word disastrous.
Yeah. Is that what it was? I'm like, yo, I thought everybody thought this way.
I tried not to jump in there, okay, because it was a longer clip. They're like, I don't care what the excuse is, man. He's fighting. He's averaging one fight a year. Blah, blah. No, context matters. Context matters. And he's like, yeah, man, I don't care. He's constantly he started saying the sick narrative. I don't know how many times I have to break this down, boys. Right here, the Leon Edwards fights. Leon was sick too. And then they kept kicking the can down the road a couple weeks during a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic where everybody was getting sick. This does not count, okay? This does not count. This does not, again, I repeat, this does not count, okay? This Leon Edwards pullouts do not count. So let's go since then, okay? Somehow Khamzat gets criticized for Paulo Costa pulling out, okay? Would have fought Paulo Costa, but Costa pulls out. He fights Usman on short notice. Gets no credit for beating Usman, who's a better opponent. When Usman got announced as the replacement opponent, they were like, oh, that's a tougher matchup for Chimaev. He beats Usman. He gets no credit. So in the last few years, he has one real pullout against Robert Whittaker here, okay? One real pullout. He pulled out at the end of June, and then he fought in October, okay? So he was out for 4 months. They had to get rescheduled 4 months down the line because they had to wait for the Abu Dhabi card at UFC 308 because he had visa issues. So he could only fight in the Middle East. And you could say, well, Joey, that's not Dean Thomas's problem. And you're right, that's not Dean Thomas's problem. But you have to take reality and use context because guess what? Khamzat Chimaev does not have visa issues anymore as far as we know. Okay? His visa issues are fixed. So that's like a guy being suspended for 2 years, the suspension ending, him coming back to fight, and then you being like, Man, he hasn't fought in the last 2 years, so he'd be a disaster as champ. No, he was suspended. Khamzat had visa issues, okay? He could only fight in the Middle East, so when he got sick against Robert Whittaker for the first time in 4 years and had to pull out, he had to wait months to get rescheduled to the next Middle East card, but that problem is now resolved. And then on top of that, he fought in October. He would have fought in February, but guess what? The UFC wanted to give beta male soy boy Sean Strickland another undeserved title shot. So Khamzat then had to wait for Du Plessis because Khamzat also wanted to fight in June in International Fight Week, but Du Plessis' pussy was hurting. Okay? So we have to take that into consideration that he could only fight in the Middle East in 2024. He pulled out of one of those and then had to wait while a beta male soy boy racist piece of shit and Sean Strickland got an undeserved title shot. And then Du Plessis was healing up his wounds and didn't want to fight at International Fight Week, so we got pushed back 2 more months. It's no different, and the reason I'm getting so fired up about this is it's no different than Ankalaev. People calling Ankalaev inactive, and they probably will call him inactive in a year from now because he beat Pereira in March and then tried to fight him like every month after that, and Pereira turned it down. Now they're finally fighting in October. So it took 7 months to get a fight booked. And then, fast forward a year from now, they'll be like, man, Ankalaev only fights once a year, man. Only fights twice a year. It's just no good. And the pullout narrative is just driving me nuts. Pulled out of one fight in the last few years, okay? The rest of it is literal context that you have to put together that does not exist anymore. That does not exist anymore. And it gets worse. I got to go to the next clip. The next clip is more of the same. It's more of the same. I mean, I could sit here and go off all day about this. I mean, it's just absolute bullshit. Listen to this.
Last couple of years.
Okay, so you see what I'm seeing. Like, I'm not tripping because for a while I thought, damn, maybe I'm tripping.
You are tripping.
No, I mean, again, it doesn't matter whether it was his fault or not. I mean, obviously, if you're sick, you're sick. You can't fight. But
he was only sick once in the last 5 years, 4 years. It doesn't matter if it's his fault or not. It does matter. Because if it's his fault, that would dictate the future too. You would take that to be like, oh, maybe in the future it'd be his fault again. The issue that he was having is now resolved. Therefore, how are you still acting like it's an issue? Makes absolutely no sense. But let's continue.
That's your point. Like, some people get sick or injured more often than others. We've seen that throughout, the history of UFC champs. Some champs have a hard time getting into regular fights, and others don't. Like Adesanya.
Thank you. That was such great analysis. Some people get sick and some people pull out of fights and some people have visa issues that are now resolved. And they had to wait for a beta like Sean Strickland to get a title shot that he did not deserve. Anyway, let's continue. Okay, let's continue. Because the next clip I want to show you is actually very interesting, okay? Because I'm going to break this down. Nobody else wouldn't touch this with a 10-foot pole, but I'll break it down because people enjoy actual honesty. But Dean's laughing about the backlash he gets. He's laughing about that because it's stupid. It's not backlash for any other reason than you're not very smart. But let's continue. What does he have to say?
Dude, they was like, see, Dean Thomas hates Muslims. And I'm like, now I know how white people felt when I always pulled a race card. I'm like, ain't got nothing to do with that.
Ain't got nothing to do with that, man. Listen. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I know for sure, man. Dean Thomas hates the Muslims, man. He hates them, man. I'm not going to sit here and say that, okay? But my point always is, when you have the most illogical narratives spewed over and over and over again, and they apply to other people, okay? And even if you take the criteria they're using and you apply them to other people and nobody says it about them, and group A that everyone says it about has a certain characteristic or an attribute or whatever you want to say, aka being Muslim, and then the other group that nobody says it about isn't, I start to think, you know what? Maybe there is a correlation here, right? Maybe there's a correlation here. And Dean Thomas says a lot of really dumb stuff, and it's usually about Muslims. And I'm not going to sit here again and say Dean Thomas for sure hates them, okay? But someone put together a compilation of some of the worst Dean Thomas takes, okay? We're going to listen to this, and then I want to check out something else before we end this video. Listen to this.
Get it. You can get their back and hold them there. But then do you start penalizing them or rewarding them for being able to hold a guy in back control? Listen, man, he doesn't have the discipline or the disposition to be a championship level fighter.
I'm convinced he doesn't even know what that means.
He's a complete front runner. He is not a championship level fighter.
He fights once a year. You mean to tell me you can't make it to that fight? When he's gotten hurt, I blamed it all on him. Him overtraining or not paying attention, doing something stupid. Always from something stupid.
Take a page out of Bo Nichols' book. Yeah, man, I heard rumors he was partying up with Darren Till. A grown man sitting around with two other grown men in their socks talking about rumors. Bo Nichols an embarrassment. But let's continue, because I want to get to a more broader point about, man, they're saying I hate Muslims, man.
He's not like staging, photos in hospital beds, I don't think.
How disrespectful he's been towards the process. Him not showing up to fights has always ruined cards. He's single-handedly ruined cards in the UFC.
You're full of shit. You're full of shit. He's talking about 279. Man, he ruined 270. He made 279 better. You can go back and watch my videos from 279. Called it then. I was hoping this would actually happen. But let's continue. Let's carry on.
I would not be surprised if between now and Saturday, something stupid happens. They put, to me, in my opinion, the worst possible matchup in front of him.
I've seen Chimaev really start to fall off a cliff.
There's no way he goes 5 rounds. No.
Anyway, so we hear Dean Thomas talk about Chimaev's unreliable, Chimaev's a nightmare, Chimaev doesn't show up for fights. He's criticized him heavily, like a lot of people in the MMA community have, criticized him heavily for not showing up for fights. And when I talk about, again, the Muslim narrative, the anti-Dagestani narrative, I'm like, you know what? I see people calling Islam Makhachev boring. I see people calling Magomed Ankalaev boring. I see people calling Khabib Nurmagomedov boring. I'm not saying Dean Thomas in this case. And then I see those same people worship a Bryce Mitchell, a Sean Strickland, a Colby Covington. Usually I have to be like, something ain't jiving there. There's got to be a reason that nobody else will say out loud that ain't jiving there. Well, Dean Thomas here has been openly critical about how Khamzat Chimaev doesn't show up. Khamzat Chimaev pulls out of fights. He's a nightmare. Well, his boy Sean Brady has 5 pullouts in the UFC. His boy Sean Brady, who he wants to get a title shot or a #1 contender fight. He's not talking about what a nightmare he would be as a champion. But you look at his career. Oh, he pulled out against Vicente Luque. He pulled out against Jack Della Maddalena. He pulled out against Michel Pereira. He pulled out against Kevin Lee. He pulled out against Bilal Muhammad. 5 pullouts since 2020. 5 pullouts since 2020 for Sean Brady, Dean Thomas's boy. But Dean isn't saying anything bad about Sean Brady. Not going on Sanko's podcast saying, yeah, man, I don't want to see Brady in a big spot next, man. He doesn't have the disposition to be a champion. Doesn't say it about him. Oh, what about, you know what? Last night I heard Dean Thomas glazing Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, saying, man, he's the best middleweight in the world. He was basically making the case for Hernandez to get the next title shot off a win over Roman Dolidze, which is a brain dead take in and of itself. But would Hernandez be a nightmare as a champion? Would Hernandez be a nightmare as a #1 contender? Or he's not? Oh, he's not Muslim, right? He's not. If he was Muslim, maybe. Let's see how many fights has he pulled out of. Pulled out against Roman Dolidze. Pulled out against Roman Khabibulov. Pulled out against Dustin Stolfus. Pulled out against Punahele Soriano. Pulled out against Rodolfo Vieira. Oh, he tested positive for COVID against Rodolfo Vieira. How many pullouts was that, guys? Was that 5 pullouts since 2021? Dean Thomas has no problem with him getting a title shot. You even go back. You go back a little bit more. Look, in another organization here in 2017, he pulled out 2. He pulled out here in 2017 outside. He's a habitual offender, but you don't see Dean Thomas criticizing him. You don't see Dean Thomas criticizing him. You see Dean Thomas saying, oh, well, if Islam beats Jack Della Maddalena, he's not pound for pound #1. If you look at his takes in the past against Magomed Ankalaev, he said Magomed Ankalaev should be in PFL. So there is a history here. Now, to be honest, if I had to guess, I think Dean Thomas is too lazy to put any actual thoughts and analysis into any of this. So I think he just probably sees what's online, what's the popular narrative, and he just probably puts his own little spin on it. And it's just not very good. But it's just funny again. Ankalaev, go to PFL. He's Muslim. Khamzat, nightmare Muslim. But Islam isn't pound for pound number one if he beats JDM. All these horrible takes seem to apply to one potential group. Okay? Just an observation. And here he is crying. Yeah, man, people are saying this. We'll listen to it one last time. We'll listen to it one more time for good measure. Because I couldn't believe I ended up catching this, okay? Because I was just about to tune out. Let's listen to it again.
Just aren't able to maintain that. Like, it's not a character flaw. I don't think you're trying to attack his character. It's just,
dude, they was like, see, Dean Thomas hates Muslims. And I'm like, I was like, now I know how white people felt.
So there you go. Dean Thomas hates Muslims. You heard it from Dean himself. But yeah, I really think this is just super low IQ takes about Khamzat Chimaev that are regurgitated by the MMA community until they become fact, essentially. Because you don't have to accurately represent reality, because if enough people say it, everyone just regurgitates it. Even a guy who works for the UFC and sits at the desk. I swear the majority of these pundits are straight up clowns. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they can't actually put together a coherent thought. So what they do instead is say a bunch of nothingness, a bunch of gish galloping, a bunch of illogical talking points they got from Instagram comment sections. And that's what I feel like Dean Thomas is, because a lot of people in the MMA community say these same dumb things about Khamzat Chimaev. So I'm going to wrap this one up, boys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Maybe I'll just drop it tonight. It's already pretty late, but it's 10 p.m. in Vegas. Screw it. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.